Tapion came to Earth and handed him his sword. Or that's just what people like you to believe. Hello there, beautiful friends from around the world. I'm going to be your host, Blackenfist, and this is Memebusters, where I crush commonly held misperceptions of the Dragon Ball series. And we'll start here with one that personally aggravates me when it's mentioned, and that is Future Trunks got his sword from Tapion. It's always puzzled me why certain fans believe in this. Tapion is a hero of his home world who carries a sword. What's important to this video is at the end of the movie, right before going back to his home world, he gives up his sword and hands it to Trunks. This was of course a nod to the fans. Mind you, it was a nod. It wasn't supposed to be something authoritative. It wasn't supposed to be something revealing or anything. It was just a nod to fans. But certain people took this whole message in another way. A lot of people felt that what this movie was trying to say is that the future Trunks that we see in the Cell Saga got his sword from Tapion. However, I believe if these people had just put a little thought onto how future Trunks could have gotten his sword, they would have quickly realized that it was rubbish. The most obvious of all the reasons is of course that Tapion is a movie character and that the events of Wrath of the Dragon are not legitimate to the Dragon Ball story. However, for the sake of argument, pretend that Wrath of the Dragon is in the story. One important thing to keep in mind is that if we're going to consider Wrath of the Dragon part of the legitimate continuity of Dragon Ball, we have to put a date to when the events of Wrath of the Dragon actually took place. Wrath of the Dragon is one of the few Dragon Ball Z movies that actually could fit into the main continuity of Dragon Ball without many problems. This movie could easily fit after the defeat of Buu in a window of a couple months. Anywhere within a couple months after the defeat of Buu, this movie could easily take place. So now that we have our time placement, let's get into the reasons why it's impossible for Tapion to have given Future Trunks his sword. Now, anyone who knows anything about Future Trunks knows that Future Trunks is not from the main timeline. Even if Wrath of the Dragon was part of the legitimate continuity of Dragon Ball, it would not be part of Future Trunks' timeline. It would not be part of the History of Trunks timeline. Wrath of the Dragon would fit into the main timeline that we follow throughout the series. This one point already renders all the events that happened in Wrath of the Dragon impossible for Future Trunks to have experienced, since from the perspective of Future Trunks, the events of Wrath of the Dragon never happened in his world. It happened in a different world. We're already one reason in, and it's already impossible for Tapion to have given Future Trunks his sword because of timelines, but we can go deeper. Let's excuse the timeline point for now, and let's just say that the events of Wrath of the Dragon did happen in Future Trunks' timeline. Could everything fit in nicely then? Well, actually, no, because we have another problem. You see, there's another problem with time placement, and I know all this talk of time might get people confused, so the easiest way to think about it is like this. Now, because for the sake of argument, we placed Wrath of the Dragon in a window of a couple months after the end of the Buu saga, Trunks should be 8 years old in Wrath of the Dragon. However, in History of Trunks, Trunks is 13. Do you see the problem there? If Tapion were to actually have given Trunks his sword, Trunks would have already had a sword in the beginning of History of Trunks. Clearly, in History of Trunks, he doesn't, but of course we can always say just because he didn't appear with a sword doesn't mean that he didn't have it. That's fair enough. But that also brings up another huge problem. If Tapion were to come to Earth, that would inevitably have attracted Hoi. Hoi was the villain from Wrath of the Dragon who was trying to reconstruct Hirudegan, and Hoi has control over the lower half of Hirudegan. That creates an enormous problem because even with just the lower half of Hirudegan, it would be immensely improbable that Gohan or Trunks or even Android 18 or 17 could have taken on the lower half of Hirudegan. If Hoi were to actually have arrived on Earth with the lower half of Hirudegan, you could pretty much expect the whole planet to be wiped out without much resistance from anybody. Despite the fact that Hoi could have probably have wiped out the entire Earth population with the lower half of Harugan, there is still another reason why this is impossible. Tapion is in a music box. In Wrath of the Dragon, even Goku, a much stronger Goku, could not have opened that music box on his own. So it would be impossible for future Trunks or Gohan to have opened that music box. The way they opened that music box was by using the Dragon Balls, but as we all know, Piccolo died in the history of Trunks' timeline, so that would mean there would be no method to destroy the music box to set Tapion free. That creates an enormous obstacle for this whole theory to make sense. So let's just excuse all these issues for now. Let's excuse the fact that Hoi could have wiped out the whole planet with Harudagon's lower half, and let's excuse the fact that Tapion couldn't have gotten set free from the music box. Let's just say that Tapion got free from the music box somehow. Would Tapion getting free from the music box in future Trunks' timeline be enough for future Trunks to have gotten the sword from Tapion? Well, you still have to think about these things. Tapion holds the upper half of Harudagon, so once again the threat of Harudagon is very real, and because Tapion is now free, that would be a magnet for someone like Hoi who wants to reunite Harudagon. Once again, Harudagon could wipe out the entire planet, but let's just say for the sake of argument, Tapion somehow takes care of Harudagon, since Tapion did say that he had a magic ocarina and that his sword was an enchanted sword. Would that be enough for future Trunks to have gotten the sword from Tapion? If Tapion was able to get rid of something like Harudagon, then that begs the question, why are the androids a threat to the Earth? If Tapion was there on Earth at all during the future Trunks timeline, then he would also be there at the same time the androids were terrorizing the planet. And since Tapion is supposed to give the sword to Trunks eventually, obviously they would have come in contact with each other and be on good terms. So one thing that I have to ask is, why doesn't Tapion take out the androids? If Tapion was able to take out someone like Harudagon, he would have definitely taken out the androids. Now, because it's a movie, it's not clear how strong Tapion is. So even if you do believe that Tapion is not strong enough on his own to defeat the androids, he does have one weapon. He has that sword. That sword he specifically said was a magic sword that has special properties. So even if he was not strong enough, what stops him from really taking out the androids? The fact that the androids are even terrorizing the planet with Tapion doing nothing also raises another question. Despite everything, let's just ignore all the evidence to the contrary, and let's just say Tapion gave future Trunks his sword and somehow disappeared without any whisper, without helping him with the androids, and he just left like he never was there, and he just gave him the sword. Let's just say, ignore all the evidence, and let's just say that. Would it even make sense then? No, not in my mind. Future Trunks' sword and Tapion's sword are thematically different. I'm not even talking about evidence here, I'm just talking about character and story-wise. When Future Trunks was first introduced, he disposed of Frieza pretty easily. He then turned to King Cold, and this is probably one of the most important conversations when it pertains to this discussion. King Cold thought that Trunks' sword was special, that it was because of the sword that Trunks defeated his son so easily. King Cold learned pretty fast, however, that the sword wasn't special at all, and Trunks reinforced this by saying that the sword is nothing but just a sword. It's because I'm wielding it that I was able to kill Frieza. The whole theme of it, of course, was that the tool is nothing without the wielder. But on the Tapion side of things, that is completely in the reverse. The sword, along with the ocarinas in Wrath of the Dragon, were magic, enchanted, special, with special properties. They were able to play the ocarina without even knowing how to play it. The sword itself had a power of its own, a power enough to slice Harudagon. That is completely to the contrary to what Future Trunks' sword is, to the whole character of the actual piece. In essence, what I'm trying to say is, is if that sword really is Tapion's sword, Trunks wouldn't have said that that sword is nothing special, and it wouldn't have broken so easily when Trunks tried to strike the androids. This is the same sword that cleaved clean through Hirudegarn, a immensely much more powerful foe than the androids, and it didn't even get a nick. Then Trunks uses it against the androids and it breaks? That already right there is just a flat out plot hole, since the sword shouldn't have broken under those circumstances, and in the past has already been shown to cleave through much stronger foes. But anyway guys, those are the reasons why it's impossible for Tapion to have given future Trunks his sword. And even though I gave you all those evidence and all the reasons why he couldn't, at the end of the day, it also doesn't make sense thematically, guys. Tapion's sword special, future Trunks isn't. It's the man that made him special. Tapion was the exact opposite. The sword was the one that made him special. So even story-wise, they conflict. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this Memebusters, and of course, there are many more memes to crack down on. So don't worry, there'll be more to come. But anyway guys, if you really enjoyed this commentary and my analysis, please subscribe to the channel as you will get the next Memebusters episode as soon as it comes out, along with my other excellent Dragon Ball videos. But until next time guys, I'll be Blackenfist, and I'm out.